This meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners is called to order. Will Commissioner, staff, and guests please rise for invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Lord, for blessing us with another beautiful day in Berry County, Michigan. Thank you for the opportunity to come together as a community to discuss and find the best answers for us as a county. Please watch over our sick and our more unfortunate. Thank you so much for having the opportunity to be here healthy this morning. Please watch over everybody in our county. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the purposes of attendance, the clerk will call the roll.
Campo.
Here.
Towner.
Here.
Geiger.
Here.
Getty.
Here.
Gibson.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Smoker.
Here.
Are we confident in that?
Identity card?
Approval of written agenda. At this time, any member of the public may ask for an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under items for consideration. Yes, sir. Can you state the nature of your request?
Item A to remove that Commissioner meeting.
That is a proper request and will be considered. It will be considered before item A, approval of claims. Is there further requests? Hearing none, does any commissioner wish to change the agenda additionally? Hearing no such request and without objection, the agenda is approved as amended. Reports from state and county officers. Does any state or county officer have a report to share with the board? Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Yes. Commissioners, make sure your mics are unmuted. And any speaker, please speak into the microphone.
Good morning again, Commissioners. My name is Brian Harrison. I'm working with AdvisaCare Home Health Care. I myself am based in Rockford, but we are a home health care company operating across the state. And I'm here again today just to ask and give some awareness again to the challenges that those following the 2019 Auto Insurance Reform Act at the state level have been facing. Many of you know, as a result of that reform, home health care services have been cut in their reimbursement by 45%, with the price of providing care probably at an all-time high. Our pricing went from around $30 an hour to now getting reimbursed as little as $14 to $16 an hour. As we can imagine, that's not something that's sustainable for this industry, and we don't believe the legislature at the state thought that that was going to be the case and happen as it has. We are hoping that Berry County, along with others across the state, will sign and adopt a resolution supporting the state to amend this for home health care. Again, we do recognize this isn't a traditional county issue, but it is something that we believe the county can have a say in and have some weight while working with the state governance. As a follow-up to the last time we were here, we do have one of our local Berry County clients with us here today, Miss Sandra Pullen. Many of you know Sandra. We, as a company, take care of Sandy. We've been doing that for a lot of years, but right now we're failing her because we can't afford to pay people to show up and do the work. And Sandy's had to have family help. She's had to have people step in to do the work that we were tasked to do, that she has asked us to do. Again, this isn't something that Sandy, along with many other families, should have to go through because they've paid for those benefits as a part of their care policies prior to the reform. Again, our ask is that the Berry County Board will allow us to be on their agenda with a resolution simply asking the state to amend and address this issue so that patients and families like Sandy can continue to receive the care that they were promised prior to the reforms changing. Final thing again, We value the lift that the state took. We know there needed to be changes to our auto insurance in Michigan. But again, to take away care that has been set as a precedent and medically necessary seems like an overreach that the state didn't intend nor would have been a proponent of. Thanks for letting me be here again today. Looking forward to having further conversations, and we hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Again, my name is Sandra Poland. I was injured, unfortunately, 9 years ago, and I've been in this chair ever since. I struggle every day. Even though I'm paralyzed, I'm in pain every day, every minute, and I struggle. I cannot take care of myself totally, but I'm pretty independent when I can be. I have a caregiver that's been with me for almost 9 years also. She's one of the few that stuck with me to help me, and I struggle every day. My kids have to take time off work. My kids have to run and help me. I try and do what I can, but I need your help to get this reversed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate you coming here today. Is there further public comment?
So this will be real quick. My family is also, Larry Bass Carlton Center, my family is also adversely impacted by the change in the auto insurance laws. I've got a daughter-in-law that has been pretty much a paraplegic since April of 2021. And where this resolution would be exceptionally helpful, I'm reading a document here from March 16th, where House Speaker Nix's effort to change payments for medical providers of car crash insurance victims. Wentworth is not going to allow any changes to come to the state legislature floor this year until the election, even though we were promised last fall that modifications would be made. So I would strongly urge the Berry County Board of Commissioners to adopt a commission demanding such a change be made. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have any correspondence to share with the board? Consent items, Commissioner Getty.
On consent.
You switched.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of June 14th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes. Item B, approval of June 21st, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Item C, approval of the recycling coordinator.
Without objection, Commissioner, we will consider your reading of item A a mistake, since we did move that.
Okay. We'll start again. Item B, approval of June 21st, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Item C, approval of the recycling coordinator, Rachel France, overseen by the Solid Waste Oversight Committee, SWOC, to complete a grant application for the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE Rural Electronics Recycling Grant to support four electronic collections over 2 years.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Smelker, to approve the remaining items listed under the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and the roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The amended consent agenda is approved. Presentations. Joe Verlin, here to present our annual audit. Good morning, Joe.
Morning.
And for anybody that would like a paper copy, we do have a few available. We do not have enough for everybody.
Would like to thank the board for allowing me to be here to present the audit. Very much was a pleasure working with the county and the staff As usual, everybody did a wonderful job. We were provided a set of financial statements, and we were able to verify the numbers as they were presented to us. A very clean audit process. If you go to page 1,
We're going to pull it up on the screen here.
probably going to be page 3 of the actual PDF. Page 4, right there it is.
Let's zoom in there.
There are 140 pages. I'm not going to go through all 140 of them. Hopefully that's not disappointing to anyone. The one page that matters more than anything else is this page right here. This is the opinion paragraph. And you can see the second paragraph down, we write, in our opinion, that financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the county as of December 31st, 2021. This is referred to as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on your financial statements. Basically, it means that your financial statements were verifiable, clean, accurate, timely. Kudos to the staff for getting to this point. It means something to get the clean opinion on your financial statements, but it should always be the county's goal to have a clean opinion on your audit report. If you were to take this year's audit report and compare it to last year's, you'll notice the opinion paragraph looks a little bit different than prior years. There were some new standards that came out. Basically, the big thing that changed was the geography. You'll see that the opinion comes first, and then auditor responsibilities, management responsibilities, things of that nature follow throughout the opinion letter. If you go now to, it's going to be page 9, I believe, of the PDF. Let's see if I can figure that out and do the math in my head. I think either 9 or 10, right there. This is the first page of management's discussion and analysis. I take readers through this section of the audit report because it's essentially, I would think of it as being the Cliff Note version of the entire audit. So if you wanted just a spot where you can go and find 8 pages of useful information rather than perusing through 140 pages, this is going to give you a lot of the financial highlights. It'll show 2-year comparative information and reasons behind significant changes in the county's assets and liabilities and revenues and expenses for the past couple of years. Working our way through the financial highlights, that first bullet point shows that the county had $53,699,038 of net position. Net position is, it's a theoretical number. Theoretically, if the county sold all of its assets and paid all of its liabilities, there'd be about $53.7 million left.
Those assets aren't all liquid.
Correct. So that includes buildings, infrastructure, things that aren't necessarily spendable. It's a very theoretical number, but we do like to see the number trending up over time. And you can see later on in that first bullet point, there was an increase in net position of $3,052,280 during the course of the year. In other words, your revenues exceeded your expenses. If somebody asked, is the county better off financially at December 31st, 2021 compared to 2020, the answer to that question is yes, by about $3 million. Second bullet point down, now we're looking at the fund balances. So the first bullet point has long-term outlook. It includes all the intangible assets, things of that nature for the county. The second bullet point, now we're looking just at the fund balances for the county. And across all the governmental funds, ending fund balances came in at $15,432,920, which was a decrease of $390,059 during the year. This is on the modified accrual basis of accounting. I would think of this as being cash basis. So in other words, about $390,000 more cash went out compared to cash coming in during the course of the year. Third bullet point down, now we're looking just at the general fund. Total fund balance for the general fund came in at $4.76 million, which was a slight decrease of $432,372. The unassigned fund balance for the county came in at $2,286,422, which is exactly the same as where it was last year. So any residual amount that's left over in the general fund itself gets transferred out per board resolution at the end of each year. The reason that there was a total decrease is because, according to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, we have to group multiple funds together and roll them into the general fund if the general fund is the primary source of their funding. For that reason, the building rehab had about $910,000 of projects that happened during the course of the year. So when you look at the general fund as a whole, there's a $432,000 decrease, but the unassigned fund balance is identical to where it was the previous year. If we take the unassigned fund balance and divide it by the annual general fund expenditures and transfers out, the county's at about 12% funding. Not too much, not too little, just a very healthy financial position as of December 31st, 2021. And the last bullet point shows that total long-term debt increased by $12.2 million. Even though Thornapple Manor is separately audited, we still include Thornapple Manor's results in the county's audit report. They're referred to as a component unit. Thornapple Manor issued $18 million of bonds, which actually the timing was quite good to do so, with rates being low during 2021 and the cost of construction very reasonable. It all worked out very well. The timing couldn't have possibly been better. In fact, especially with all the construction and costs and uncertainties with interest rates and so forth. But that is the reason for the $12.2 million increase in total long-term debt. Next, if you go to page 12 of the PDF, these are comparative assets and liabilities for the past 2 years. The very top row shows that cash and investments increased. So if you go to the very far right column, 2020, $37.2 million was the cash and investments at December 31st, 2020. That number increased up to $49.9 million at December 31st, 2021. About a almost $13 million increase. The biggest reason being, if you look halfway down the page, there's unearned revenues of $6,092,917. Those are the ARPA funds. The first half of the county's ARPA funds have been received or had been received as of December 31st, 2021, but not expended. So that's the biggest driver for that increase in cash and investments. And in fact, the county probably, if you haven't seen it yet, it will be forthcoming soon, the second half of those ARPA funds. Some of our clients are starting to see those funds roll in. The other thing, a couple other things I wanted to point out. If you look about 1/3 of the way down the page, the very last item in the asset section is the net OPEB asset. 2020 was $141,007, and that number increased up to $752,188 as of December 31st, 2021. Of all the counties that we work with, we audit a dozen counties and 250 local units of government throughout the state of Michigan. You guys are the only one that has a net OPEB asset. So very prudent management of your total retiree health care liability. Changes have been made to keep that cost down long term. Eventually, over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, that net OPEB asset is simply going to dissolve and become part of your cash investments as that plan over time dissolves and the final payouts happen. So very healthy position funding of your OPEB liability.
If we could pause just a second, for folks that are new here, new commissioners, OPEB is other post-employment benefits. This means that this is the retirement portion, or excuse me, this is the retiree health care portion, correct?
Yes.
So we're not talking about our pension debt. This is the retirement that we offer to those who are under 65, healthcare. Once you turn 65, we don't offer that. So just to clarify.
Sure. And the very next item I was going to point out is the net pension liability, similarly.
Okay, here we go.
So if you go about 3/4 of the way down the page into the non-current liability section, we can see that the total net pension liability came in at $13.46 million at December 31st, 2020, compared to about $12.4 million as of December 31st, 2020. So over time, over the next 18 or so years, that number is going to be fully funded. You can see progress has been made, $13.46 million in 2020 compared to $12.4 million in 2021. Ultimately, that number is going to approach and become zero. And then second row up from the bottom, the unrestricted net position, you can see that number increased from $14.2 million up to $17.5 million. So that's the residual amount, a better representation of what the true liquidity was at the county as of December 31st, 2021, after we back off the restricted items in infrastructure and long-term assets. If now we go to page 13, we will see the comparative revenues and expenses for the county. Page 13 of the PDF, page 11 of the bond report. So the very top section shows comparative revenues for the county for each of the past 2 years. If you look at the very far right column, about 1/3 of the way down the schedule, you can see that total revenues came in at $54.3 million in 2020 compared to $51.8 million in 2021. The biggest reason for that change was at Thornapple Manor. So not necessarily anything that the county is doing. It's more happening at the Thornapple Manor. In fact, if you look at governmental activities, 2020, you can see total revenues were $26.77 million compared to $27.9 million in 2021. So a healthy rebound in the county's revenues. Thornapple Manor will have a nice recovery in 2022 because they will have an employee retention credit occurring during the course of 2022. So we'll see those numbers spike back up in 2022 for Thornapple Manor. If you look about 3/4 or so of the way down the page, we can see the total expenses came in 2020 $48.4 million compared to $48.7 million for the total primary government in 2021. So very flat, very stable expenses in 2021 compared to 2020. And then if you look 3 rows up from the bottom, the increase in net position during 2020 was a positive $5.9 million compared to a positive $3.1 million in 2021. So back-to-back years of increasing net position, your revenues are exceeding your expenses. Certainly a very healthy sign, especially with all the economic uncertainties surrounding COVID. If you go now to page 22 of the
And
PDF.
when you give these page numbers, you're saying of the PDF, right?
Yes, page 22 of the PDF, page 19 of the bound copy. We get a look at the fund balance sheet. So the very first column shows the county's general fund at December 31st, 2021. 2 other funds were considered major funds, Central Dispatch and the ARPA fund. And then all the other governmental funds are aggregated into one column. They're considered non-major funds. General fund, like I mentioned, $2.286 million of unassigned fund balance. The other thing that I wanted to point out here is that all the other funds have positive fund balances. So the county's general fund is doing well. All the other funds have positive, healthy fund balances as of December 31st, 2021 as well. If you go now to page 21 of the printed copy, page 24 of the PDF, we see revenues and expenditures for the funds, governmental funds of the county. And here, again, just wanted to point out the general fund had a decrease in fund balance. You can see it, first column, 3 rows up for the bottom, $432,372. The biggest reason were the building rehab improvements of over $900,000 during the course of the year. And if you go all the way to the very last column, total governmental funds, you can see there was a net decrease in fund balance of about $390,000. And again, if you back off the general fund's performance and we look at all the other funds aggregated together, about a $40,000 increase across all the other funds. So essentially break even for the other funds, which is healthy. That's what they're there to do. Over time, the other special revenue funds should be break even. Now if you go to page 75 of the bound copy, page 77 of the PDF, this is a 7-year comparative schedule showing the county's net pension liability. The 2021 results show that total pension liability, according to the actuaries, came in at $65,943,440. It's about halfway down the page. That number represents how much the actuaries estimate will be paid over the next 30 or 40 or 50 years to fully fund the pension benefits to county employees and retirees. In order to cover that liability, if you look about 2/3 of the way down, we can see the planned fiduciary net position. These are the assets that have been set aside by the county to cover that liability. The county has set aside $57,821,776 to cover that liability. And the difference between the assets and the liabilities equal the net pension liability of $8,121,776. $664. If we take your total assets divided by your total liability, the county is at 87.68% funded. Treasury expects a minimum funding percentage of 60%. On average, our clients are about 71%.
Wow. This is the last audit that Hoot and I are going to review, and I'm going to take a moment to recognize this fact. In 2015, we were 66% funded, and today we're about 88. That's good financial stewardship. So we have saved, and we have been good stewards of the taxpayers' money and found opportunities to pay down debt. So it's nice to see it on paper.
Yes, yes, it is. And if you look about halfway down the page, to echo your point, you see net investment income of $7.2 million during 2021. Because the county's so well funded, when your assets generate a 13.6 rate of return, it's nice to have that funding set aside in the trust. It certainly makes a big difference. We don't know what 2022 is going to yield, but over time, we know on average it's going to be about 7.3, 7.4% return on those investments. So the better funded the county is, the more your assets are going to do the work for you rather than putting the burden on your general fund. So definitely very well funded, much better than average when we look at when we look at our clients. Another couple items on this schedule I wanted to point out. If you look in the 2020 column, about 5 rows down, you can see changes in assumptions. And that increased the county's total liability, total pension liability by about $1.8 million. It happened again in 2021, about a $2.6 million increase in the total pension liability because of the MERS Retirement Board changing assumptions. So in 2020, they decreased the expected long-term rate of return on pension assets down 0.4 points. In 2021, they took a closer look at mortality tables and wanted it to be a little bit more refined, a little bit more precise. That's the biggest driver for the second change in assumptions. Altogether, about a $4.4 million increase over the past 2 years the county's been able to withstand in terms of those actuarial estimate adjustments, and you're still seeing an increase in your total funding percentage. So certainly kudos to the board for setting aside those funds to put the county in a very healthy position. A lot of our clients are seeing a reduction in their funding percentage over the past couple of years because of those adjustments. We don't know. I don't know that I would anticipate more assumptions. They're always being reevaluated. My understanding is that we don't anticipate any negative assumption changes in the next year or two. In fact, if there are adjustments, they might actually be favorable. If you skip ahead now a couple more pages, page 77 of the bound copy, page 79 of the PDF. You see
Just flip one.
very similar schedule for 5 years for the retiree health care obligation. This standard is not as new as the pension reporting, so we have 2 fewer years to compare. But again, you can see that the county is doing a very good job of managing that long-term OPEB retiree health care liability. And in fact, it's an asset, which is very unusual. If you look, the total OPEB liability as a result of the changes that have been made to the plan and the payouts that have been made, the total OPEB liability decreased. At the beginning of the year, it was $1.5 million all the way down to $431,000. And then if you look about halfway down the page, again, we see the $869,078 of payouts that happened during 2021. That reduced the planned fiduciary net position, the total OPEB assets, down to $1,047,724. If we subtract your liability from your assets, you have net assets of $616,840. Doesn't quite match up to your financial statements because the financial statements include Thornapple Manor and the transit as well. But the county's piece is a $617,000 asset. And ultimately, once everything is fully paid out, it's probably going to happen in the next 7 or so years, 7 to 10 years for sure. Those leftover assets will become cash investments to the county. You'll have full control over those. Right now, they're sitting in irrevocable trust. Last thing that I wanted to point out, if you go all the way to page 138 of the bound copy of the report, or page 140 of the PDF, we get to the schedule of findings and question calls. This is just a nice little dashboard showing the results, not only of the financial statement audit, but also of the federal awards audit. So because the county received and expended more than $750,000 of federal funds, in addition to us performing a standard financial statement audit, we perform a federal single audit as well. And we take a look at a half a dozen different compliance requirements for major programs, major federal programs. And we look at the controls, we look at the compliance, and we verify that all of the strings that the feds have attached to those federal funds are being followed. It's nice to receive those federal grants, but they need to be expended in accordance with those contracts and grant documents. Here you see halfway down the page, the federal award section, there were no material weaknesses, there were no significant deficiencies, and we actually provided a second opinion on compliance over those major programs. That opinion was unmodified as well. So in other words,
that makes me feel a lot better because I've gone 11 years as commissioner without a material weakness. This is my last audit. So
sure.
For those of you guys unfamiliar with audits, material weaknesses, that's what you don't want to hear. That's where we have significant issues with how we handle money. So this is good to hear.
Yep.
When it comes to the federal awards, is the county still going to have to audit our ARPA fund every year? I mean, for the foreseeable future. I mean, if we pay it all, spend it all out, I mean, is it still going to be something we're going to have to audit for?
As soon as that $12 million is expended, it will no longer be subject to a federal single audit.
No.
So it just depends on how long it takes to use those funds.
No. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Getty?
Thank you.
Mr. Smelker?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Gibson?
No, good report.
No. Vice Chair Connor?
Good report. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Commissioner Jackson?
You said that you audit for 250 local units of government? And
Yes.
several other counties as well. Are you seeing any trends that the county should be aware of or make note of as far as in all of your vast perspective on this, as far as what's happening with county governments and local units of governments to be aware of?
The two big items, maybe there's three right now. Number one is figuring out how to manage net pension liability. That's the number one issue, or one of the top issues that our clients are facing. You guys are already doing that. Same with retiree health care. That's probably the second item that a lot of our clients are working on strategies to get that funded long term. And the third hot topic right now is how do we expend the ARPA funds? How do we listen to the constituents, make sure we understand what the priorities are, what are eligible uses of the ARPA funds, how do we know that we are expending the funds correctly so that we don't have audit findings in the future. Those are probably the three biggest items that we're seeing our clients work through right now. And I would say that you guys have, already done a pretty good job of tackling two of those three, and obviously the ARPA item is certainly ongoing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Campbell?
No questions, and thank you for a very good report.
Michael, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Well, this is, it's a very thick and verbose report, but it is good. It tells the story of what we do each and every day here in Berry County, how Michael and his team and everybody here in the courthouse takes care of the taxpayers' money. So thank you for your time.
Sure, glad to be here.
Appreciate your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we doing, Commissioners? We need a break? Hearing no request. Sarah Nelson, Executive Director of the Conservation District. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, how are you all?
Great. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Sarah Nelson. I am the Executive Director of the Berry Conservation District. I've been there for 7 years now. And so I just wanted to go over our 2021 annual report. There are a lot of numbers, both on these slides and also in the report that I handed out and brought a few extra copies. It was also in the packet. So I won't go into detail about those numbers. I just want to give a general overview of our programs and our projects for 2021, and then what we're moving into this year, and then take questions. So try to keep it short and sweet. Dave, I think we might be ahead a few slides. Would you mind going back to our financial report, please? Thank you. So just a brief overview of the Conservation District's financials for 2021. As in previous years, we are primarily a grant-funded organization. In 2022, for fiscal year 2022, just to give you an example, we have about 21 different grants and agreements that make up the funding for our projects and operations. So I put the local contributions on there, and so we are, as always, grateful for the assistance that we get from you all as well. Our expenses in fiscal year 2021, the majority of our expenses were towards watershed conservation programs, and a big reason for that is that we had a program that we'll go over that had a lot of cost share available to agricultural landowners and producers. We do currently have a cost share program available as well, but the funding for that, it's a different mechanism, so it doesn't go through our financial system, so you won't see that in the budget and in the financials as much next year, but the benefits to landowners are still the same. Some of our other major categories for expenses were our invasive species management programs, forestry assistance, and then of course our operations and outreach. So our different projects and programs fall under a variety of conservation initiatives. We have forestry, and that's primarily addressed through our forestry assistance program, watershed health, which is addressed currently through our Inland Lakes Cisco Conservation Project, the Thornapple River Watershed Management Plan Implementation Project, and the current Thornapple Kalamazoo Water Quality Partnership. That Water Quality Partnership project also addresses wildlife habitat. And another project that we had in 2021 addressing wildlife habitat conservation was the Berry County Wildlife Habitat Enhancement Project. We also work with agricultural producers to help conserve resources and also help protect their assets and protect them against some liabilities associated with agriculture, and that is primarily accomplished through the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. We also work on invasive species, and all of the programs and projects for invasive species fall under the Berry, Calhoun, Kalamazoo Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. And then we've also, as you all know, been working with the county to support the Berry County Recycling Coordinator Program. So like I said, I'll just go over each of these programs briefly and have time for questions. So our Forestry Assistance Program, our forester, Ben Savoy, has been with us for 6 years now, so we've been really fortunate to keep him around for so long. He's been a wonderful help to a lot of our landowners. He conducts free site visits with landowners who have forested parcels to discuss their goals and options for meeting those goals. He does a lot of referrals to programs and for financial assistance, and also a lot of referrals to the private industry. These are some of his accomplishments from 2021. Something that is new for the program starting this year is that Ben is working on a oak Oak Initiative. Sorry. So
It's
he's
kind of funny. What is an Oak initiative?
So he is working to promote responsible white oak management. And so we'll be doing a series of workshops where the public can come out and see some of these techniques that you use for white oak management and see kind of the before and after. So the first couple of these will be taking place this year in conjunction with the Berry State Game Area. So if you've ever wondered, you know, why are they cutting down all these red pine, or why are they doing these burns, or why these other practices, it's going to be a really great opportunity for people to come out and have that conversation with a couple of professional foresters as well as the DNR staff.
Anybody that has interest in trees should meet Ben.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, you can go on, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So next is the Inland Lake Cisco Conservation Project. And this is one of the projects where sometimes when we don't have a full-time technician, I'll fill in as the technician for these projects. And so I've been the lead technician on this one. And this project was designed to assess habitat for Inland Lake Cisco, which is a state species of special concern. And also to work on some lake management conservation practices. So we installed, in conjunction with the DNR, 3 temperature and dissolved oxygen logger arrays, which you have these little machines that are programmed to measure the temperature and dissolved oxygen in the water at a given interval throughout the entire, basically, growing season. And you sort of attach those on a long rope at certain depths, and then you measure those continuously throughout the season. And Inland Lake Cisco is a fish where their habitat isn't like the physical habitat you would normally think of, like plants or something like that. It's actually a combination of they need low temperature and high dissolved oxygen. So that's kind of how we use those machines to measure to see if the habitat is suitable for these fish throughout the season that they would normally be most stressed, which is the summer. We also held a variety of workshops with the landowners on the lakes that we were working on. And so those were highly successful. And we were working primarily with the folks on Big Cedar, Little Cedar, and Wall Lake. So all sort of in the Delton Dowling area. And we also started installing some natural shorelines. So we did our first one in 2021, and that's when basically, you know, a developed shoreline would be something with hardscaping, so like a seawall or rock. And we're trying to convert some of those back to more natural plant shorelines. And so this is all completely voluntary. We start with the workshops, and we see is there interest from any of these landowners to sort of convert their property back to more natural, and we work with those landowners to find a design that's going to work for them and then install it, and we help them with the cost of that too, as long as we have these grants. So this is the picture was of the first shoreline we installed. We did another one already in 2022, and we actually were able to fit in a third one, and we had another landowner who was very enthusiastic about this. So we're going to be doing 2 this year. And then after that last shoreline installation, we'll be doing, you know, a few more educational programs with the landowners, and then we'll be wrapping up this program. A project that came to a close in 2021 was our Thornapple River Watershed Management Plan implementation project. And that was originally supposed to be a 3-year project, but it got extended due to issues with the pandemic, so it became a 4-year program. And this program was really focused on reducing non-point source pollution in the Thornapple River. In particular, there were some areas that had been identified with E. coli issues, and those are oftentimes related to high nitrogen, high phosphorus, and high sediment loading. And so we were looking to address all of those through failed septic system replacements, agricultural best management practices, and then also education and outreach. So that program ended up being quite successful in a number of practices that we were able to install, and also the amount of reductions that we were able to achieve in sediment and nutrient loading. I think that might be on the next page. We also installed 4 natural shorelines. These were more at public locations, so and this included Eaton County. So we had a couple of parks in Eaton County. We also did a project at Charlton Park, which we are continuing to work on and expand. And so these were the total numbers of practices that we were able to get in. And then these are the nutrient load reductions from those as expressed in pounds per year. And the way that these are calculated is through a standard, it's called the STEP L. It's a spreadsheet basically that estimates pollutant load reductions, and it's just the standard that EPA uses for all of their projects to be able to compare project outcomes.
2.7 million pounds of sediment.
Yes.
How did you achieve that reduction?
So that was through the agricultural best management practices.
Okay.
Yeah, primarily that's going to be through things like grass waterways are huge for sediment load reductions. Cover crops are also very effective at that. So.
Vivi and I both sit on lake boards, and sediment is a huge problem for residents.
You got to get roots in the soil is the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so now that that project has come to a close, we got a new grant to work on the same issues but in a slightly different way through the Thornapple Kalamazoo Water Quality Partnership. This is a grant through the NRCS. So as I mentioned, we don't actually write checks to people for the cost share. Instead, it's an additional pot of money through the NRCS that folks can apply through us to this program. So it is additional money for landowners in this area, just not directly from us. And so we hired a new technician, Serena Prince, and she is overseeing this project. So we're working in 3 main areas. We're doing the agricultural best management practices as before. We also added an upland wildlife habitat component. We have had a lot of feedback from wildlife cooperative groups in the county that they would like to try to find some mechanisms to fund habitat work because they've seen how vital it is for wildlife and wildlife recreation. And so we responded to that by seeking out grant funding. And we're also adding an aquatic habitat improvement component, and this was to address issues that have been identified by our drain commissions and road commissions over the years. I think you can all agree that finding funding for adequate road stream crossings is extremely difficult, but yet extremely important not only for human safety, but also for aquatic habitat health. So,
if you see a turtle, be a good person. Get them out of the road.
And be safe about it.
Yeah, I move turtles, just for the record.
So we were able to start on this project in 2021, but it was mostly just organizing groups, and then we did take our first round of funding applications for the agricultural practices. In 2022, we are continuing this work, and we're starting to, we've been focusing more on the wildlife habitat component. We did a series of workshops around the Cedar Creek area for some folks there, but opened them to the public. And we're starting the land management planning process with those folks and we are starting some planning on the aquatic habitat portions as well. So those will be probably our focus in 2023 will be the aquatic part. Our agricultural environmental assurance program, we have a wonderful technician who is housed out of the Ionia office. Her name is Alyssa Muchler. And although she is housed out of Ionia, she does serve Berry County as well. And so she does site visits and verifications here as well. And she could probably speak a lot better on this program than I could. But in general, she offers education, technical assistance, and then assistance getting through the MEP verification process. And through that program, she also measures practices, conservation practices that result from those assessments and verifications, and calculates load reductions from those as well. So in 2022, she is continuing to work in both counties, and in Berry County, I believe her focus right now is re-verification, but then for next year, we are hoping to expand and also to work on providing a workshop in Berry County next year. Our Berry County Wildlife Habitat Enhancement Project was another project that came to a close at the end of 2021. And so that was a project to work on habitat improvements on 3 publicly accessible areas in Berry County. One was at Pierce Cedar Creek Institute, one was at the Otis Farm Audubon Sanctuary, and one was at a DNR property on Reed Street in Nashville that the Conservation District manages. So we were targeting a variety of different habitat types, oak savanna, oak forest, wetlands, and grasslands. And we worked on improving those through practices like invasive species treatments, prescribed burns. We did seedings, planting plugs, and planting trees and shrubs. And probably one of our largest programs currently is our invasive species program. So this is the Berry Calhoun Kalamazoo Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. It's also called the BCK SISMA. So if you ever hear the term SISMA going around, that SISMAs are these cooperative groups in Michigan that work on collaborative invasive species management. We got a new SISMA technician. Fallon left for an opportunity in Muskegon, and Zach has been really great at catching up to speed on everything. And the main things that we work on for this program are education and outreach, technical assistance to landowners who have invasive species, so things like giving them advice, information about the plants or the invasive species, and then information on how they can manage them themselves, or if they fall into sort of these high priority species that we have, we also have a variety of programs to help get those species treated. So you can see they were very, very busy in 2021. And a couple major things that happened in 2021, a new invasive species called Mila minute-weed. I believe it was late 2020 that the first detection was made in Michigan, and it was in the Calhoun County area. And so that fell under BCK SISMA, so we began working on that in 2021 with a series of surveys and letters to landowners, just trying to assess the situation. Moving into 2022, we're moving into more treatments and expanding that area that we are looking for infestations. Because a lot of times these things can start to move along roadways and along waterways, and so you might not know the full extent of the problem right away. We continue to work on red swamp crayfish as well, on our right-of-way program in Berry County, and we're starting to do some municipal treatments in other counties as well. And in 2021, we started our first contract work with Fort Custer Training Center. And I think that that's going to be really important for the sustainability of the SISMA. It's not necessarily working on high priority species, but it's trying to find an alternate funding mechanism so that we can bring in some funds to supplement our landowner cost share programs, because the amount that we charge landowners is less than the cost of doing the treatments, and so that program is not self-sustaining. It does need some other form of support, and so contracting has sort of been one way that we're diversifying the funding for that. In 2022, we are also beginning some spotted lanternfly surveys for the Department of Ag and Rural Development. Spotted lanternfly, if you haven't heard about it yet, is a species that has not been detected alive in Michigan, but one dead individual was found in Michigan. It's something that can come in on in trade a lot, so on trucks or pallets, and it poses a large threat to, in particular, the cherry industry, but also just to the health of many trees in Michigan. I believe it has like 14 native Michigan trees that are host species. So it's a species of great concern for the Department of Ag, and we are going to be surveying some trees and setting traps along major highways, especially in Calhoun and Kalamazoo County, just to kind of keep an eye out for those and try to detect them as early as possible if they do come in. And finally, we have the recycling program, which you're all probably most familiar with, because that is actually a county program that we are just assisting with. And so we were able to hire Rachel France, who you've all met and have seen that she has been incredibly capable and just wonderful in this position. So as recycling coordinator, she assists the Solid Waste Oversight Committee with administrative tasks. She also works on solid waste planning, which is now called materials management planning, and so she's been helping us identify the steps in transitioning to materials management planning, and also in 2022 has made a huge step forward on that by applying for that MMCE grant. She's also been working on identifying areas within our household hazardous waste collections that we can improve, and working with the Health Department and the Solid Waste Oversight Committee to improve those. For example, in 2022, Rachel started an electronics collection at our spring event, and so while that was the first of its kind, we certainly hope it's not the last, and so she's currently looking at ways to make that more feasible long into the future. She's also done a lot of education and outreach, both in person and online. So if you haven't checked out berrycountyrecycles.org or facebook.com/BC Recycles, please do, because there's really great information on both of those. She created a really cool map where you can go in and search for what materials you'd like to dispose of or recycle, and you can see the locations where you can find those, or where you can dispose of those or recycle them. And she's been offering technical assistance to local units of government. So at the beginning, this was a lot of, showing up to meetings and making introductions. And then a lot of focus was placed on assistance at the Nashville site, and so now she's moving into assisting local units apply for the mini grant program and get some of their projects up and running. So all very good things. So that's it. I've got up here our address, phone number, and then our website addresses. So if anybody has any questions or would like to learn more or get a copy of the annual report if they were unable to get one, please reach out because we're very open to sharing.
Vice Chair Connor?
Thank you very much. You have more information than probably we can digest in your presentation time, but for all the hard work you do and for all the financial, monetary from our farms that come through your office, we appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Jackson?
Thank you again. Good presentation. I don't sleep very well when you show up. Last time it was Japanese knotweed, you know, and I know there is some of that in Cloverdale down close to where I live that they're working on that. Have they put a plan in place? I know that they said that that's just something you don't spray. It's like a long term.
That is a fantastic question and extremely timely. So we have been working on the county roads, right? And as you know, we have been spraying Japanese knotweed. Now, the treatment for Japanese knotweed is quite lengthy. We say at least 5 years of spraying. And then beyond that, you still have to be very vigilant about monitoring long term because the root system on Japanese knotweed is designed to withstand volcanic eruptions. So it is a very hardy plant, and digging, cutting, mowing, burning all cause spread and cause the plant to become more vigorous. So it is a very tricky plant to manage, but we are actively spraying on county roads. The infestation in Cloverdale has been on my mind for the last 6 years as well. That is unfortunately on a state road. I had a very good conversation with our local MDOT representative yesterday, and he referred me to their regional spray program director. So I will be getting in touch with that person soon, and I hope it goes well. I'm sure you can appreciate, as with our road commission here, when you are managing the health and safety of folks via managing roads, especially when you're managing on a regional scale, the detail with which you're able to look at some of these things is just not as fine as a group that is specifically working on invasive species in the county, right? So we will be offering them assistance in the same way that we offered the county assistance for those, and I do hope to develop a positive partnership there, but it definitely takes two, right? So we'll see how that goes.
Are they getting a handle on Japanese knotweed in the county, or are there still more pockets popping up?
The county infestations?
Yes.
So we did a more in-depth survey this year to prepare, and you may have seen some pink flags around. We had our teams go out and put flags up on all the infestations that we knew of so that we could spray those and so they wouldn't get mowed. We've been working closely with our road commission and with the contractor who does the mowing. So as far as we can tell, it's not getting worse. And I think that is largely in part to the willingness of our road commissioner and the contractor to not mow those areas so that we can be more effective with our spraying. So.
Just when I thought I was going to get some sleep, now I read about the mile-a-minute weed, the invasion of the red swamp crayfish, and now the spotted lanternfly.
Sounds
the world
like
is just not a safe
Southern
place anymore.
banjo band or something. What is the red crayfish?
So the red swamp crayfish was found in Vicksburg, Michigan. Luckily, that's the only infestation that we know of in the 3-county area. It is a slightly, larger than the normal crayfish you would see, the native ones. And it's bright red when it's in its full adult stage. And it's just a very invasive crayfish from down south that creates these really destructive burrows and reproduces prolifically and doesn't really have any natural controls for it. So we are continuously working to monitor and trap on that lake in Vicksburg. And then a couple of years ago, we did a more extensive surveying where we went out to many, many lakes in the area and did trapping and surveying, and luckily did not find any other instances of that, but got to be always vigilant. And I gotta say, you know, I got into this field because I love being outside. But there is, every time I go out now, it's always, you know, with a slightly different lens, so.
Right, right, absolutely. No, I was reading that just brief summary on mile a minute weed, and it's not active in Michigan right now, it's not active in West Michigan, but you're saying that something like that can overtake trees, natural habitat, forests because it grows so fast.
So the mile a minute weed, I think maybe I got crossed there. So the spotted lanternfly is not active yet. Mile a minute weed is, we have several locations in Calhoun County. It's not in Berry County yet. It's only, as far as we know, only in Calhoun yet.
Keep up the good work.
And yes, that one grows quite rapidly over trees, over shrubs. It's a vine that grows quite rapidly, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Campbell.
Just thank you, Sarah, for a very informative report, and it's nice to know that our conservation here in Berry County is in such good hands. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
Yeah, to echo Commissioner Campbell's, we are very fortunate to have a team that you've built and the grants that you've pursued and managed, and I love the way you laid out the annual report with your accomplishments and goals. So you're always looking forward in a measurable way of where you're going. So I really appreciate farms, forests, waterways. That's what makes Berry County so special to us, and thank you for looking after it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you very much for your report and what you do, and hopefully if you need any help from us, don't hesitate to ask.
Can you catch crawfish?
No, but I can mow Japanese stuff without
Okay.
knowing it.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to mow it.
No.
Commissioner Gibson.
Thanks for the job you do. I have no questions.
Thank you.
You have exceeded this board's lofty expectations. I think this is your most successful report, or the Conservation District's most successful report. The metrics that you presented today are astounding.
Thank you.
So I think it was a worthwhile investment to give the Conservation District an increase in our last budget. So thank you to you and to your team for making this county a greener, more healthy place.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. If there's no objection, we'll take a 5-minute break. Hearing none, we're at recess.
Place to lay after I've watered.
Board will come to order. At this time, we'll move to items for consideration. The first item is a request made under the bylaws to discuss an item previously on the consent agenda. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion for approval of the June 14th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes.
So moved.
That motion is made by Getty, supported by Jackson. Discussion? The individual that made the request wish to speak on it.
Yeah, if you go down to item 19, limited public comment, it's pretty simple. It says Gary White would like to market analysis done in the front of court building, FOC building, and consider, it says selling the building to seniors. I should probably say selling the building for seniors that are looking to downsize. I guess if they want to invest, it'd be okay, but I'm sure I didn't say that to sell it to them, but.
So if we change the 2 to 4, would that be an accurate?
I think small words matter.
Okay.
That changes the whole context of the statement there.
All right, if there's no objection, we will direct that the minutes be amended. Hearing no objection, the minutes are amended. Question now before the board is approval of the June 14th, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Connor,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye, the item is approved. Before Commissioner Gibson reads the second part of this consent agenda, I do want the commissioners to note that on the agreement between Berry County and the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee, item C, the applicant name has been changed from the Conservation District to the Oversight Committee. Michael wanted me to let the board know that. Any questions on that? Hearing none. Commissioner Gibson?
My only question is, I think we've already gone through all the consent items, right?
I'm talking about items for consideration.
Okay. And am I doing those?
Who did consent items?
We switched.
Who?
Who did?
They're messing with you.
Someone to my left can take care of it.
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of claims in the amount of $245,410.22.
Second.
Motion by Getty, supported by Gibson, for the approval of claims in the amount of $245,410.22. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye, the item is approved.
I move for the approval of Berry County Annual Financial Report for the year ended 12/31/2021.
So moved, Jackson.
Support, Smoker.
What's wrong with you guys today? Catherine moved it.
Oh, support, Jackson.
No.
Motion by someone, supported by someone. Motion by Getty, supported by Jackson, for approval of the Berry County Annual Financial Report for year ended 12/31/21. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Geiger.
I have to join in the fun too. Aye. The motion carries.
I move for the approval of the attached professional services agreement between Berry County, the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee, and the Berry Conservation District for recycling coordinator services as recommended by the Solid Waste Oversight Committee.
Second, Gibson.
Motion by Getty, supported by Gibson, for approval of the attached professional services agreement between Berry County, the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee, and the Berry Conservation District for recycling coordinator services as recommended by the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. Is there discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smelker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
No.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is approved.
I move for the approval to appoint an ad hoc committee to negotiate an agreement related to the Tyden Loft project and to ratify the chair's appointment of Commissioners Campbell, Jackson, and Smelker to the committee.
Support Gibson.
Motion by Getty, supported by Gibson, for approval to appoint an ad hoc committee to negotiate an agreement related to the Tyden Loft project and to ratify the chair's appointment of Commissioners Campbell, Jackson, and Smelker to the committee. Discussion. Rarely are we presented with an opportunity to literally grow the community. It would be foolish of us to let this moment slip by. I'm confident that these three gentlemen can negotiate a good deal and bring it back to the Board of Commissioners and get this project moving for Berry County. Any discussion or thoughts? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Clerk, call the roll.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
No?
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is approved. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. County Administrator's report.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set. Vice Chair's report.
Thank you. Things that I've done since the last board meeting. Gun Lake Improvement Board, we approved another treatment of the channels on Gun Lake. With some of those hot temperatures the last 10 days, we've got some algae. That was done, the treatment was done yesterday. Airport Board, the board approved to award the bid for filling the ditch adjacent to the runway to be in our excavating. To accept, we also approved the donation of the former skydive building from Larry Baum. He's donated that back to the airport. And for Ron Holly and Dave Tassava to sign the contract with Mead and Hunt for the rehabilitation of, well, it's actually for the engineering for rehabilitation of the sidewalks and the parking lot. On a note, if you're looking for breakfast on the 9th, which is a week from this coming Saturday, the Dawn Patrol Pancake Breakfast will be at the airport from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. I also attended last night the Planning Commission, and we approved with conditions a gravel pit operation in Orangeville Township on Miller Road. The conditions include construction of 2 additional traffic lanes, so it'll be 4 lanes there in front of that property, and they'll consist of acceleration and deceleration lanes and modified operation hours from Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays, 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Board of Public Works this morning approved 2 pay application requests for the Middleville wastewater treatment plant expansion. And I want to state for the record that a statement made at the June 14th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting during discussion on the Juneteenth issue was incorrect. I did not meet with Chairman Geiger and Berry County Courthouse Employees Association leadership. We did meet with an employee of that union group or that bargaining group, but she wasn't leadership. So I
apologize if I misstated.
Thank you. So, and then it showed up in the paper. So I was like, I better say something. This coming Saturday, if you want breakfast, 7-2 out at Yankee Springs, their firefighters breakfast at the fire station on the corner of M179 and Payne Lake Road, 7 a.m. to 10:30. So 2 weekends in a row, breakfast. So if our firefighters and the airport, they do a great job, and if you want to get out and just enjoy having breakfast, that would be wonderful, and support these 2 groups. That's all I have.
All right. Let's start with Commissioner Smelker, Commissioner reports.
Okay, I attended Transit, which Hoot will give a report on, 911, Village of Freeport, and the airport. And all went very smoothly, so I'll just let that go. And don't forget the Charlton Park breakfast coming up.
Commissioner Gibson.
June the 13th, I attended Carlton Township. They talked about zoning, they talked about sewer maintenance fund, they talked about the ARPA funds, they talked about the budget hearing, they talked about clerk training, they talked about the cost of living adjustment, they talked about the mute swan resolution. And they
Wait,
approved-
what?
Mute swan resolution. These are swans on the lake that they have a problem with. They attack people that are fishing and
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of the
okay. Going on, they approved their 22-23 fiscal year meeting dates. I attended Hastings Township on June the 14th. They talked about property foreclosures in the township. They talked about budget adjustments. They talked about the election commission for August. I attended the transit board on June the 20th. They've completed the transition to the SIP phone system, which reduces the monthly phone bill by 50%. The new mobile data terminals are close to full installation. On all the buses, 4 buses remain. Bill Voigt distributed information to the board on Gateway Transportation. This is an upstart service and a spinoff of Broadmoor Motors. Fares are sufficiently higher that they will likely not impact the service mission and clientele using transit service. The transit provided transportation for the Father's Day car show at Charlton Park. Rides provided were just under 3,000, which is in line with the numbers pre-COVID. Commissioner Smelker asked for information as to how the transit handled the full board's recognition of the holiday Juneteenth. Bill Voigt advised that we were not able to alter the schedule due to 45 medical runs and dialysis rides already committed to. I attended the city council last night. They approved the request for the 22 Summerfest committee to hold Summerfest on August the 26th, 27th, and 28th. They also approved consideration from the Hastings Police Department to hold National Night Out in Tyden Park on August the 2nd from 5 to 8 p.m. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. No report, but I want to take a second to recognize that fantastic audit again and give a special thank you to Michael Brown, Luella, County Administration, especially just for the 7 years I've been here, to be able to have that kind of ongoing knowledge and confidence in the finances of this county and the direction we're heading is fantastic. And I know Michael, as he said last year, it's a culture that has endured in the county, that county directors are conscious of what's going on with hiring, with people, with finances, with the money that comes back. So we have something very special here under Michael's leadership in county administration, and I don't think that can be overlooked enough, what a blessing it is to have that type of leadership here in Berry County. So super appreciative. And county administration. And I don't often have major announcements, but just so you know, second weekend in August is the Delton Founders Festival. And some of you will know that our very own commissioner here, Bruce, will be there giving rides and signing autographs for those interested friends. So Commissioner Campbell will be there, so that's a big draw every year. And we now have in my possession a limited supply of cow plop tickets. And if you haven't participated in a cow plop before, I question your Berry County roots. So, you need to participate in the cow plop.
Wash your Berry County hands.
Yeah, $5 per ticket. And last year's winner took home just a little over $4,000. So if you would like to participate in that event, please don't stampede my desk afterwards. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
I did attend the Berry Eaton Health Department meeting on the 17th. We did receive funding from the state for adding health resource advocates to work with schools and youth organizations on various health issues. These positions will be there as long as the additional funds are available. Expected to be at least one additional year. No one is required to use those services if they so desire. I also attended a CAA meeting yesterday, and that was a very, very, very lengthy meeting. We were doing a lot of annual reports, and there's a lot of fingers in that pie. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Getty.
I attended the health department meeting as well. Bruce did a nice job of summarizing that, those actions. I had a very long Berry County Parks meeting, going over budget and, you know, what we want to accomplish in the next year.
Going over the budget, not going over budget.
Going over the budget, correct. Very important.
I just want to keep our,
Semantics
you
are
know,
important here.
stay on message here. We're fiscally responsible.
The importance of those little words again.
The Charlton Park is having their old-fashioned 4th of July, and it is something not to be missed. So, you know, if you can get out there on the 4th. Pancake breakfast at Charlton Park, benefiting the Gas and Steam Club on July 9th. That's from 6 to 10 a.m. Just, you know, having participated in the audit now twice and seeing how financially responsible the county is, it really is something to be celebrated. So it deserves 2 rounds of kudos. So thank you.
Well, you can do- Thank you. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Hello, Gary White, Nashville. I also attended a health board meeting out in Eaton County. What was neglected is the school health supervisor is not state or federally funded. It is going to have to be funded by the county once you get employee. It's hard to get rid of them. It's easy to say that they're just gone, but I don't think that one is going to be. The email that I did bring up, I had FOIA from the health department, was sent out to all school superintendents and districts and ISDs, and not one responded back as if they wanted them. Colette said she had received phone calls, but never stated from who or when or why or what they called about. It was also, I noted there, that the budget was amended for the positions before the positions were even approved. And that came up in the discussions when approving these staffing positions. Well, you've already approved the budget for these positions, as if that mattered. So did the health board really understand what they were approving when they approved the amendments to the budget? It did not appear so. It's easy, Ben, you blamed, we need to look at growing Berry County government and positions, and you say due to state mandates. Well, there's no state mandate in the health department or those positions, but it's growing. You also look at, you don't want to sell the building because we have needs. Well, have you ever looked at asking what reductions the county should be taking? When department heads come in and say, well, we want this position, it's always approved, but you never ask for what do you get in return for the taxpayers. Same thing with the Hastings banner. When you read Fred Jacobson there, if you read him, this, you know, questioned the same thing. I think we're once again agreeing with Fred, which isn't bad. I would like to know when the committee, ad hoc committee meets, so I can attend that. How am I going to find out about that? The negotiations with the developer. It is a committee, should be open to the public, correct? So hopefully I'll have an answer before people leave today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, without objection, the board will now adjourn. Board is